Hump day. Okay, we we are back. Sorry for that. The technical difficulties, guys. We've got Kendra back. We were talking about her major in school and what she is did study. So
Mhm.
she's gonna get us right back on track here.
Yes. Yeah. So I majored in corporate communications and I have a minor in sports advertising.
Okay, cool, cool. Did you now you worked for Longhorn Network, right? A little bit.
Yes, I did. I did
So
some internships while I was, in school, but then I ended up taking my first job out of college with them.
okay, awesome. Um, Do you so what would you want to do with that major or maybe not with that major, but what would you want to do after sports?
Sure. So when I was in college, I thought I wanted to do more broadcast, and obviously that was my first job. So I really enjoyed it. But at the time, I still wasn't really done running track. So, I decided to go pro. But I think during this journey of like figuring out what I want to do with my life, I ended up going back to school and getting my master's in sports management. So,
Okay.
after kind of years, I figured out that I wanted to be an athletic director in some capacity at a university or a college, and really just help athletes is what I want to do long term after sports.
Okay. Okay, cool. Um talk to us a little about your nonprofit you got going on.
Sure, yeah. So that's like directly connected to, everything I've been talking about, but it's called First Athlete Coalition. And basically this nonprofit is just a company that I started in efforts to help, bridge the gap between athletes, what they don't know about becoming a professional, and even
Mhm.
collegiate athletes who will soon be able to make money off of image and likeness from various companies. So it's really just an educational tool for athletes, and that athlete can be, junior, middle school. It could be high school. It could be collegiate. It could be amateur or professional. So we want to cater to any athlete who's really interested in branding themselves in a way that will make them marketable, but also just like bettering themselves too.
Mhm.
We want to, give a lot of network connections, job connections, future connections, and really help them build resumes, portfolios, even if it's outside of their sport or within their sport. So we definitely want to continue to help athletes. And, with the NCAA rules that are forever changing, it's hard
Mhm.
enough to go to a college. It's hard enough to excel at academics, hard enough
Yeah.
to excel in your sport. The last thing you need to be worried about is how to make money. We can do that for you. So we're kind of providing a service, and I'm not an agency or anything like that. So we don't take a cut of anything
Right.
you would make. It's more of, like I said, helping athletes and getting them in the right direction.
Okay. Yeah, I think that's perfect because that's something that exactly that I needed when I was, as an athlete of my 7 years overseas, and even at the last minute when it was time to retire,
Great.
to figure those logistics out. Awesome. I think that's gonna be great. So, was becoming a professional athlete always the goal,
Mhm.
or if not, when did you kind of understand like, I might be able to do this thing?
Yeah, so absolutely not. Like when I was a little girl, I thought I would watch, the Olympics, and I watched the gymnastics teams, and I was obsessed with them
Yeah.
and do cartwheels and make my family throw up tens, And
Mm-hmm.
that idea of competing at a world, level was always, I always wanted to do that. But, you grow up and it's like you don't really take that dream serious. But it's just like different things that were instilled in me to, if you join something, you see it through. I never quit a team mid-season, or, if you show up, you get there on time, you're early to practice, you're the one
Right.
who's the latest. And so those types of habits really contributed to me ending up as a professional athlete.
Mm-hmm.
And like I said, I had the option of just going into my career. I worked for Longhorn Network. I took a year away from track and, did what everybody else did, got my degree and kept it moving. But for some reason, I was miserable because I wanted to keep running. So I
Mhm.
listened to what, that inner voice was telling me. And I
Yes.
decided that I was going to just continue this and try, give it my all and see, if it didn't work out the first year or the second year, then, I could go back to work. But I think as athletes, we have such a short amount of time
Yeah.
to really get that in. And I would hate to be an athlete that lives with regrets, or a person live with regrets in general. So that's kind of what led me to become a professional athlete.
Okay, awesome. I want to backtrack really quickly back to college. What from going from high school to your rookie year at UTEP or getting to UT? What was the biggest difference for you? What were some adversities you had to face and kind of overcome?
Yeah, that's a great question. The biggest adversities I faced transitioning was just like I said before, the level of expectation and really, honestly, the academics. I felt like that was something that I could control, right? I was always an athlete, so I could control giving 110% and showing up to weights and practice on time. I could control that for the most part. But I felt like I was definitely out of my comfort zone with the academic side of it, having an academic advisor, having a team of people follow you to class and make sure you're in class. And like, those things are very hard for me because I'm a very independent person. And transferring from UTEP, I had a 4.0 GPA. And I thought like, oh, well, I can do the same things I was doing in high school in UTEP at UT Austin, which is a higher caliber, academic school. And I learned the hard way that I wasn't able to bring those characteristics to UT, and I had to change quickly. And I learned how to study, like actually study. I learned, I had to actually go to every single class, which I wasn't always accustomed to because I felt like, again, on top of my studies. I felt like I didn't have to go to every single lecture. But yeah, it's like, again, the more you level up, the more expectations are placed on you. So it's like that continuous cycle of like learning, like, okay, if this is the school I want to attend, then I have to go to every lecture. Then I have to go to every class. And really, it paid off in the long run. I think learning all of those good traits at UT Austin taught me everything and more that I needed to know as a professional and also in my master's program. So those good habits, even though at the time I might have not been happy going to study hall or having class checkers, it was just one of those things. Like, now looking back, I'm so thankful that I learned that I have to be on time, that I have to study, I have to, those are just good things to learn.
Awesome. So you just mentioned masters. What did you get your master's in?
Sports management.
Sports management. Okay, awesome. Okay, let's get back on track to professional track. So you graduate from UT and then you took a year off in between there. Talk about a little bit that transition from taking that year off and then getting into your rookie season overseas. How were you feeling?
Yeah, it's hard. So the crazy thing about female athletes in America is there's no typical avenue that we have for becoming professional athletes, unfortunately. I was shocked, didn't even know it was a thing when I was younger, that there were junior Olympics, that there were, meets overseas for people under 20, people under 16, that there were track meets going on around the world. And the U.S. absolutely does not educate us about those opportunities. And one of the main reasons is, the biggest sport in the United States is football, the NFL, and that's really everyone all concentrates on that. So for me, it was more of like a learning process more than anything. And I took that year really to learn if it was possible, period, in general. And I found that, track and field is also very complicated in comparison to other Olympic sports in the U.S. And, we have 2 seasons, indoor and outdoor. The way it works, like any other sport, we have an agent and they get us into track meets. And with this, since we don't have a team, there's no team. There's no team to join. So we have sponsors. And sponsors are shoe companies, basically, or apparel companies. And they they pay your stipend, they pay your housing, they pay your food, carno, all that. That's kind of included. And then they also pay for your travel overseas or meets in America or hotel and lodge, things like that. But we've also been able to over this past year, been able to work with other companies that may not be apparel or shoe companies. So the idea is that track and field is moving towards triathlon and professional biking or bicycling,
Okay.
where they have, or even NASCAR, where they have multiple sponsors on their uniform. So in the past, track and field athletes have been prohibited from having multiple sponsors on their uniform. And now we're moving towards where we are able to have multiple sponsors. So for instance, myself, I'm sponsored by a water filtration company who provides me water, and they're on my uniform. And I'm also sponsored by Wazelle, which is a track and field apparel company. So you can do something like that, right? Where you have multiple companies, but they're both paying you a certain amount of money to be a professional athlete. So that's kind of how it works in track and field. Now, there's other details like, for instance, sponsors in track and field can limit what meets you go to, or tell you what meets that you have to go to, or give you a certain number of track meets you have to run. So you, as a professional athlete in track and field, you hire your coach. You hire your agent, you hire your massage therapist. A lot of track athletes we're our own business, and we hire and fire people as we see fit. So we have to be very educated about what the sponsors are doing. We have to be very educated about what meets are happening overseas, what the prize money is looking like. And of course, your coach might take a percentage of your prize money. And your agent usually takes between 15 and 20% of the prize money if they helped you get into that meet. So there's a lot of different, stipulations in track and field. It's a confusing sport, but for the most part, like, we all want to make Team USA, and that happens. That usually happens. So it usually happens with World Championships years and also Olympics. So there's a few times where you can make Team USA teams as a track and field athlete.
Okay, so explain this really quick. So the bigger Olympics, right? The international Olympics is every 4 years, and then the World Championships is that every 4, but it's like in between, or every how do you explain that?
So it's in between. So it's
in between.
So it's Olympics, World Championships off.
Okay.
World Championships, Olympics. So yeah, it can be confusing, but yes. So and now with the coronavirus, it's even more difficult. So back a year, but the idea is to have those 3 meets back to back to back to back, and then of course followed by an off year.
Okay. Now, what's the time span for those 3 meets and then the Olympics?
So you're talking about the World Championship?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it happens every year. So calendar year. Yeah. So the same time that Olympics would typically happen, that's when a World Championship will happen.
Okay. Okay. So I want to definitely dive into how training went and the whole pandemic, how you're feeling about that. But you touched on something that I like to teach kids when I'm helping them with their confidence, and I call it their success team. And so you started to talk about your agent, your massage therapist, your coaches. And so for me, I know I had to have a success team, which was some was overseas when I was there, and a lot of them were here in the States in the summer when we're off, right? So my chiropractor, my acupuncturist, my massage therapist, my court trainer, my strength and conditioning trainer, right? So I'm telling them and teaching them now that there are certain people that you have to add to your success team in order for you to be the full athlete or student athlete that you need right now. That they need. Can you talk a little bit about your success team? I know I feel like it's huge.
It is. It takes a village. Like, you cannot do this alone. And the faster you understand that, the better athlete you'll be. I think for the most part, you obviously, as a professional, there's different teams that you need because you have to function as a business. But, even in college, it was like, I wanted the people who were speaking around me, speaking into me in my circle, to be positive, to have confidence that I could get the job done. and even in high school, to be honest. So I think just like an overarching theme for my career has been, obviously, number one, you have to have people on your team that can help you feel better. And when I mean feel better, I mean physically. So there's a lot of wear and tear on our body. And I think having somebody who can either stretch you, a trainer. I had amazing trainers in high school, and a lot of people don't give them enough credit, but I took ice baths and did, I heated up like my hip before, and just actually doing it. Like, you're like, oh, I don't want to go to the training room. Like, it's the truth. But thinking about like, hey, if this is going to make me perform better and beat you on the track, I'm going to go spend 30 minutes before practice instead of in the locker room. I'm going to go handle my business. So you have to make choices along the way. And then in college, of course, just like doing the rehab at home. So there was a lot of things we were made and forced to do. But then when you go home, like, what do you do? So I kept going with it, saying, okay, if I want to be the best, I have to also ice when I get home, or I have to also, try to find a massage therapist that I like, that maybe if I didn't like the one I had in college, I could find one outside, different things like that. Or even having a spa day. Like, sometimes in college, I would go get a pedicure and a massage, and it wasn't track related, but it made me feel good. So thinking about that, and as a professional now, I obviously have a team who, I would take to Tokyo. So my massage therapist, my doctor, all of those people who know my body, who can get me ready to run well. And just having those people around is so crucial. And then secondly is my mental aspect of how I want to be as an athlete. And I found my sports psychologist in 2015, and we've been working, for the past 5 years together. And that's such a life changer for me, is having people who speak amazing things into your life, and you have a clear thought process, and you're able to compete well. And I felt like in college, I had a lot of friends and family members who were that for me. And then as a professional, I was able to seek professional help and really have someone focused on my performances and my mental stability when I was in meets, overseas or at the Olympic trials.
Okay. That's so good. I'm glad you brought that up, because right now I'm actually doing like a series on Mondays with my friend TK LaFleur. She's a mental performance coach for youth athletes. And we're just talking about mental performance and self-confidence. So can you talk a little bit more about how you found your sports psychologist? Like, was it pushed upon you? Were you doing your own due diligence and like, hey, I need some help, I need to perform? How did you come about finding your psychologist there?
Sure. So when I joined my professional team in 2015, like I said, I was new. I really didn't know all that much about track. I mean, you learn so much as you go along the way, but I had a coach who had trained, world champions before, and she was actually on the staff for the Olympic team in 2012. So she knows what, she was also a professional athlete herself. So she knew what we needed. So when I first arrived to the group, it's like we had this list of doctors who were working with us as the professional group. And it was a chiropractor and, massage therapist. And then she brought up a psychologist, and I was like, I don't need that, and I felt like I had done it by myself before. Why would this be different? And so learning to be open, and she kind of like pushed us on it. So I went, and at first I was a little like, okay, like what did this do for me? And it took me honestly a couple of months of just like continuously seeing her to see the benefits, because not only were we just like getting to know each other, but while she was getting to know me, she was understanding my triggers. She was understanding what motivates me. She was reading me. So by the time I was ready, to get help on the track and all of that, she knew, what we had to do for hard practices and for like the most important meets. So we kind of spent that year, not only getting to know each other, but also working on different positive mantras that I could say. So for me personally, I was actually really motivated by writing and visuals. So I used to write a lot. I would write like the numbers that I wanted to run, or just a lot of that, and also visualizations. So I remember her telling me just to like visualize yourself at a track meet, and what does the grass smell like, and what does, you know, the air smell like, and how does the track feel like. Even those little things, when your body goes through it mentally before, it's not a shock to the system when you're, you know, in Italy or Hungary and you're alone. You don't have your team, and you have to draw back on all the practices that we did with my sports psychologist. So yeah, it's been an amazing experience to work with her. I can honestly say that in 2016 at the Olympic trials, I wouldn't have placed as highly and did as well as I did without my sports psychologist. So she's been like a key factor in my most, you know, important meets so far.
That's awesome. That's so good. That's awesome. I was gonna ask, did you know, working with her for that year, was there anything that you learned or found out that you did not know about yourself, as far as mental roadblocks, or something maybe so small that you weren't doing in college that really boosted your confidence in that moment?
Absolutely. The one thing that sticks out to me is getting rid of the have to and the language that you talk to yourself about your sport. In college, you know how it feels. There's a lot of pressure.
Yeah.
It's self-inflicted, and sometimes it's given to us by ADs, by coaches, by the staff. When you're at Texas, a school like Texas, you're expected to win, period.
Every time.
So it was hard. Like, it was unreal how much self-inflicted pressure I was putting on myself. And she taught me, as I was growing with her and becoming a professional, that wasn't the way to kind of manhandle and just try to ramrod through these races. She's like, you have to find different motivation, not just have to, I need to. If I don't, then I'm not going to get a sponsor and money. And what about this? And what if I don't get into this meet overseas? All of that clogs your brain into focusing on the task at hand. And that's to compete at the highest level you can compete at that moment. So clearing that noise for me was so crucial. It was life-changing. And she really emphasized staying in the moment and just competing and forgetting all the noise, forgetting all the other things going on in your life, and just having, for me, my race is 2 minutes. Just having 2 minutes of silence and execution. So that's really like what we worked, and it works. I can tell you from experience, it works.
That's 2 minutes of death. That 800? Yeah, right. She said silence. Yeah. No, I'm screaming the whole way. I don't want to. Man. Can you talk a little bit about the training it takes to do, you know, your 400 and your 800 meter run? For everybody that's watching and listening, if you don't know what a 400 is, it's a track and it's one lap around. The 800 is two laps, and you are all out. I'm gonna be all out on the ground, but she's gonna be all out. So talk to us about the training it takes to be able to win a race like that.
Yeah, you would be shocked. Honestly, we have a thing that we say the 800 picks you don't pick it.
Oh no. Yeah. So
it's one of those things where, like, honestly, the training is harder than the race. That's usually how track and
field
for
sure.
Because our races are so short, usually, unless you run distance events. But even if you do, you overtrain. Like, you train more than you run, like the race. So going into that as a sprinter, you know, in high school, I ran the relays and, you know, did long jump. And so I never ran over 400 meters. And in high school, I did the 100 and the 200 and the 400. So moving up to the 800 was like scary for me. It still kind of is, to be honest. It's like the most that I would ever run, probably. And it's just brutal training. Like any other sport, we have, you know, weights. We have other things that we do to get in shape, like yoga or abs, stuff like that. And then the training on the track consists of some sprinting, so like fast stuff, I do some block work and some 30-meter short sprints, so really fast and a lot of drills. And then I have another side of my training where I'm doing mileage, so longer runs, hour runs, 30-minute runs. And then it'll be like repeat thousands on the track or repeat miles on the track. So we run a mile, take a few minutes, and then we do another one. Take a few minutes, and then we do another one. So it's kind of like it's
complete stop. I heard three.
Like,
no,
it's the best of both worlds, to be honest. We do a little bit of
That's
distance and a little bit of speed, so it's nice.
Yeah, that's tough, man.
It is.
That is
it's
tough.
Not for the weak.
Yeah, and I know the training is tough because I used to look at track bodies, the guys and the women, and I'm like, dang, y'all so built and fast, and especially when we would walk through Moncrief.
Yeah,
I see y'all have the barbells, right?
Yeah.
Your Olympic lifts, and I'm like, that is all power. But
Yeah.
how's he lifting that? I think we need to train over here.
Right. No, yeah, we have to be strong, and track is one of those sports that demands that your body is in top shape to run as fast as we want it to. So yeah, it's a lot of work.
I'll tell you what. Awesome. So let's talk about adversities and any adversities that you've been through that kind of was like a huge obstacle that you got over, or talking about any injuries that you had to get over as a professional athlete.
Yeah, sure. I typically didn't have major injuries. Like in high school, I had like things that would bother me, but I've never really broken a bone. I've been pretty blessed on that. And until my professional career, where obviously I'm maxing out, like on the track is the most I've ever ran before. So in 2018, I actually had kidney failure from overtraining, which is the thing. Run
okay.
To run too much, and a little bit of dehydration. So
right,
a combination of those things, and that really was like the first time I couldn't run. So that was like crazy hearing a doctor tell me like, you need to let your kidney heal and you have to take some time off. And then in 2019, I tore my tendon in my foot, the plantar fasciitis, the bottom of your foot. And I was just sprinting, and I went up on my toes and my spikes, and it just snapped. And I thought I stepped on a rock. Like I was so surprised at what was happening. But that also was like 6 weeks off the ground, no contact. So it was like a slow, getting back to it. But honestly, these injuries were semi-minor, and they quickly passed to where I could compete, generally in the space, but not at my best, obviously, 6 months after that. But yeah, I think for me, those injuries taught me a lot. One, I lost money because of those injuries. And then another thing is, your sponsor has to make decisions. So they cut your contract, right? And then if you're not racing and you're hurt, you don't get to go overseas and get prize money. So it's a hit. It's our job to compete. So if you're not competing, you're not making money. So the thing with injuries at this level is you're constantly fighting yourself to get back as quick as you can, because you have to. So that's been like my biggest obstacle, was learning like, okay, you have to take a step back, because if you force going back too early, you can get injured even more and set yourself back. So really just realizing like injuries come as a lesson, and they come to teach you the little things actually are the big things. Taking care of the little things, icing, stretching, making sure that you slept enough, you drank enough water, like little things make such a big difference. And for me as a professional now, it's like, wow, like how dumb could you be? Like you should have did these things. You should have stopped if your foot hurt. You should have, those, you want to train harder. I mean, you want to train smarter, not harder, right? So it's like, become more talented in your sport, that you realize like, okay, like these injuries shouldn't have happened. What am I going to do now moving forward?
Okay. So if you could talk to a rookie right now getting ready to go into her first year of professional track. Is there anything specific that you would say?
Yeah, I would just say, enjoy the process. And I know that's so cliche. It was the last thing I wanted to hear as a rookie.
Enjoy.
I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear it. But honestly, I can say from experience, like, I was miserable at times. I would run my first 3 years as a rookie. Like, I didn't understand. Like, I was like, I want to run. I want to be the best. I want to be the best in the United States. I want to make that Olympic team. And I placed 9th at the Olympic trials. And I was devastated because I didn't understand that there's a process. The eight girls ahead of me at the Olympic trials, they paid their dues. They went through the process, and I was a newbie. And immediately after that, I spent 2 years hurt, running awful. And I wished I could get back those times, when I was complaining, why wasn't I fast enough? And in hindsight, it's like, wow, like, God is good, because he teaches you lessons so many times, so many areas where you realize, like, you have to enjoy the process, because you never know when the last time on the court is going to be. You never know when the last time on the track is going to be. You just don't know. And because, we have a livelihood on sports, or we're going to college, or we're in high school playing sports, you can't get upset at every loss, because it steals your joy of being able to play in the first place. So just imagine for a second, you have a broken ankle. Would you still be mad about the loss, or would you be like, okay, let's go to work. It's time to get better. So there's different ways of looking at what failure and loss look like to an athlete. And I think over the years, I've learned that failure is just another step to success. It's a step you have to take to get to success. You can't avoid it. You might as well embrace it, and you might as well enjoy the view while you're there. You're living your dreams. You know what I mean? So for me, I would definitely give some advice of just like, enjoy the process, enjoy the view, even enjoy the losses. Use that as motivation to, get the win next time. But don't make yourself so miserable that, you sit and compare. You wish, you wish you had it this way or that way. But in reality, you don't really understand, how much good you do have in your life until it's too late.
Yeah. I can definitely agree with you, because I look back on my 7 years playing overseas, and I'm like, when I had to put the shoes up, I was like, dang, 7 years? That felt like 2 years. I'm like, no, this can't be happening.
Yeah.
And you think back to like all the pressure that you kind of put on yourself, and it kind of gets in the way. It makes your view cloudy, and you can't really enjoy the process and enjoy being in that small town in Spain and going around the city. Like, I'm like, oh man, I can't wait to go back overseas. Like, I'm not gonna be able to play, but I gotta just travel.
Right. Yeah.
Like, I can't wait to get out of the country. I'm mad. I'm so mad.
Same. It's amazing. It's amazing what we see as athletes, the places we go, the people you meet. All of those things are part of being an athlete. Like, even the other athletes, your rivals, your coaches, like, that's the thing we're here to do, is to learn from people and meet people and see different cities and play in different, states and countries. And that's it. That's the dream. So I think when we get, like you said, that self-inflicted pressure, when we get caught up in what we're supposed to be doing or what game we should have won, you steal the joy from just enjoying the view.
For sure. Awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
Yeah.
Can you list off some countries that you've been to all around the world? Where have you been?
Yeah, so I've competed in London. I've competed in Italy. I've competed in Budapest in Hungary.
Nice.
I've ran some practices in South Africa. Where else? Goodness, I'm like trying to think.
I know.
Yes. Oh, yes. I've been to Switzerland. I've ran there, and I've also ran in France.
Awesome. Do you have a favorite country or favorite top cities that you really enjoyed?
Yes. I would definitely say I had a training camp in Stockholm. That was, I love that
Sweden.
place.
I love Sweden.
Yeah. Stockholm is one of my favorite places on earth, but honestly, my number one has to be Italy, and anywhere in Italy. I'm a really big pasta fan, so when I gained like so much weight eating all the food. I love Italy, and the people are great. And I'm half Mexican. I know Spanish, so like I can kind of understand Italian.
Right.
So I've been trying to get really good at Italian. So I'm almost there. But yeah, it's just a beautiful place. Beaches, pasta. I mean, what more could you ask for?
Yes, that's awesome. I love Sweden. That was maybe my third season over there. I actually played on the island. There's an island next to the motherland, and I played in a city called Visby.
Okay.
So every time we had to go to an away game, we had to go to the mainland and take a ferry. And I thought it was so weird that we would just drive our car on the ferry.
Yeah.
And there's no check-in, there's no open the trunk, what y'all got in here? We just driving. Everybody got their cars on this ferry, and we out here in the sea. Wait a minute now.
Yeah,
they never do that in America. But just those small details of different cultures, I was so blown away. I was like, wait a minute, they didn't check any of the cars.
Right. Yeah, there's things definitely work different over there for sure.
Yeah. So I had a great time in Sweden. The food was great. The seafood was great.
Yes.
People were awesome. And I think I'm biased because I could go to the store and ask for butter and not be like, what do you say? No, that's not. I wanted the butter, not the banana. So they speak English, and they actually speak English from a young age. So that's really cool. But yeah, man, traveling the world and seeing different cultures and just different ways of life and different everything. I think one thing that was funny in Portugal and Spain, I played in, and I would have my mom send packages. And I know we went to practice. It was early, 9 or 10 a.m. And then after practice for an hour, I would go to the post office. 11, 12, the post office should be open, right?
Yeah.
Them jokers were closed. I'm like, wait, didn't y'all just open a couple hours ago?
Yeah.
They close. They work a little bit. They close it down, and they work a little bit, and it's a slower pace. Yeah. But I could definitely appreciate it. It's awesome and different.
You take breaks in the middle of the day, right? It's time to just go back home. I'm like,
just chilling. When I need my package, man.
Right.
Cheetos in there.
Yeah, no, definitely so appreciate. And I think that's why Americans appreciate that so much. And they might hate us for going, but honestly, I cannot wait to get back, like you said, because it's just a slower pace of life. And also, it just seems more I don't know if you got this, but more appreciative of where we are on Earth. So there's not a lot of trash everywhere. Everything is really fresh. They really take pride in just how obviously there's places that don't, but just how to live life and live it in an enjoyable way. I never saw anyone who was stressed out or saw fast food places or saw people in a rush. So I think that's the difference in America where we want everything fast, and over there it's refreshing to me.
It is refreshing. It is. So some other things that I noticed maybe my first 2 years is that if you're traveling to Dallas or Houston, there's not it's not going to be many times where it's 10 miles before there's a gas station or something to get somewhere to get some food, right?
Yeah.
We're going to see something the whole way. When you get on those European roads, if you don't pick something up and get some food, it's about to be 2 or 3 hours before you find an actual restaurant. I'm I haven't seen a McDonald's in a minute. Didn't they say we're going to stop? Wait a minute.
And it's crazy because when you do come to a rest stop over there, they have everything. It's
they do.
Hotel, there's a restaurant, you can get your nails done, your hair did, your shoes signed. I'm well, y'all, you just spread everything out. You wouldn't have to have one thing that does everything.
Yeah, you get there, they're we've been waiting for you.
Yes, yeah, it's crazy over there for sure.
That's awesome. Let's see what other questions I have. We've talked about a lot. I think we covered everything that I wanted to cover. Looking at my notes here. we do. Can you talk about Rule 50 and
Yes.
what you're getting ready to run for?
Yes. Yeah. So USA Track and Field has an athletes advisory committee. And for the past, I don't know, I would say 2 years, I've been interested and I got my master's in sports management. So I've decided to kind of turn my gears towards, being involved in my sport more heavily. And this upcoming December, I'm going to run for the athletes advisory committee. And I'm excited about that. And I get to just be a voice in USA Track and Field for the athletes. And hopefully, I'll be able to work with, working on some policies and rules that just help athletes. Like I said, I want to do when I grow up. Well, I'm grown up. So, and this is one of the ways that, I want to start my career as an athlete advocate. And I think it's important that we have athletes' voices in our national governing bodies. So they make the decisions. So we have to have our voice, and it's very important that we attend all the boring meetings and go all to, all of those things and, read the rules and the bylaws and stuff like that. And so if I find it interesting, I'm glad that I can be a voice and a beacon for other athletes who can tell me what they want, and we can go take it to the big guns and talk about it. So I'm excited to play that role in my sport. So that kind of leads to what Rule 50 is. And for a lot of people, especially in America, they don't know a lot about Olympic sports. But I guess we can start with what they do know. So, with the NBA and the NFL, and soon with the WNBA, I'm trying to think, and the MLB. I believe the American soccer team, USA Soccer. So they've all had some type of demonstration with Black Lives Matter. They've been able to hear the athletes what they want. They've been able to, in a sense, protest the way they see fit. So they've made alterations to their, uniforms or shoes, or, they painted their courts with Black Lives Matter. So different various ways of showing, solidarity with the African Americans who are feeling, the racial climate in America right now.
Right.
And for Olympic athletes, just so you get the scope of where track and field fits in this. So track and field only has about 2 meets in America, which is part of the problem, right?
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So you can find other meets that are associated with USA Track and Field. There might be 4 to 5 meets that you could do. But to be honest, the majority of our season and the majority of our income and the majority of the eyes that we have on us come when we're overseas. They come every 4 years at the Olympics, or they come at an international meet like World Championships or Pan American Games or World Relays. Those are the international opportunities that we get as Team USA in track and field. So Rule 50 is a rule that exists throughout the Olympic sports. So all the Olympic sports you could think of, they all have to abide by this rule. And track and field is one of the most heavily Black or African-American teams that Team USA has, right? So if you remember in 1968, Tommy Smith and John Carlos, they raised their fists in protest. And that was, during a very scary time in the U.S. 1968 was one of the heights of the civil rights movement. And, that was a protest. So in retaliation, the United States Olympic Committee and the International Olympic Committee stripped their medals. They said their times didn't count. So it's just awful, right? That they would have to go through that for protesting for their country. And so thinking back about like how this affects track and field athletes now, you would be surprised to find out that the rule is actually still the same in 2020. So a lot of athletes have voiced their concern that this is not only unfair and unjust, but American athletes have had it, because not only are they sitting in a country where all of the professional sports are able to protest in a tasteful, respectable manner, now that when we go overseas to World Championships or we go overseas to the Olympics in Tokyo, we could get severely punished for protesting. And it doesn't make sense as an American athlete because all of our peers are doing it, right? So I think the United States Olympic Committee has a big issue on their hands. I think they're going to have to figure out how to give American athletes voices at these international competitions, because they're kind of like head to head with the International Olympic Committee, who are run by Europeans. This is an international committee that's saying nobody can do this. And even though, you know, Team USA brings in the most medals and we have the most, you know, world records, and we are the Olympics, you know what I mean? If we were to pull out of the Olympics as a protest in Tokyo, honestly, I would be all for it. If they're not going to change Rule 50 and allow us to protest or allow us to be able to speak our mind on Black Lives Matter, why should we go and sacrifice our bodies as a Black body, as a commodity in the Olympics? So there has to be some kind of exchange here. And I think the United States Olympic Committee has to hold its place and firm and tight and not budge on this, because what's going to happen is a lot of athletes will protest, and that's it's going to be awful for the United States to lose out on medals at the Olympics, especially after the coronavirus, after COVID. Like, all of us want to be there. You know, we should have the opportunity to protest how we see fit. So that's kind of what we're working on right now, is talking to, you know, the United States Olympic Committee, and they are the ones that talk to the International Olympic Committee and can help change the rule. So we're constantly advocating for them to help us go and talk to them. And at this point, it's reached a point where a lot of former athletes, current athletes, you name it, athletes have started to write the International Olympic Committee just demanding that they change the rule. So it's getting like a heated conversation, but it's good. And I'm hoping that, you know, in the next year, they can come up with a resolution that fits what American athletes really want.
Okay, that's awesome. And I think it's gonna take former athletes, current athletes to write in and put pressure on the big dogs that make the decisions to do what's right and do what they need to do for their athletes. So I had a question though. So on the Olympic level, is it all sports? There's no sports that can actually do any type of peaceful protesting, right?
No. So there are consequences, and these consequences are not written anywhere. So they're at the discretion of the So if
convenient.
It's so convenient. Always. So if you're a favorite, Michael Phelps, okay, for instance, white, male, swimmer, American, and he puts his fist up on the podium as he receives his gold medal. Do you think there would be a difference if in the consequence, in what consequences he faces in comparison to, I don't know, a track and field athlete who's Black, who you know, African American, who may be from, you know, somewhere in an impoverished area, you know, say in Texas, and they're not really that well known, and they get a bronze medal. And on the podium, that person sticks their fist up as a Black African American at the Olympics, sticks their fist up. Do you think there would be a difference in consequence?
I do, for sure.
So that's the issue. That's one of the main issues, is that why are whose discretion is this, and who gets to decide who gets their medal stripped away, and who gets to decide who gets 2 years probation or who gets banned from the sport altogether? And that's across the board. That's swimmers, divers, gymnastics, track and field. There is not a rule right now that allows Olympic athletes to stand on that podium and raise their fist without fear of consequences or any type of, you know, it's just unfair. And at this point, I think with the racial climate in America, you cannot ignore that this is a possibility. But I think it should be like a fundamental right for any, not just Americans, but like anybody. So, you know, there are countries like Iran and Israel and other places, I mean, who are facing issues in their country right now. And they also are at the Olympics. So we have to think about this as a global movement. And they always bring up the argument, well, what if somebody wants to do a hand gesture? If we allow you to do a hand gesture, what if somebody wants to do a Nazi symbol or a Nazi salute? So you can have discretion on our consequences, but you can't have discretion on what a positive civil gesture is.
Right.
Okay. So they're picking and choosing where they want to have the
For
balance.
sure.
And so that's the issue.
Yeah, and it's just funny. What has it been, about 50 years now? Wow.
Yeah.
A little bit more maybe. Since 1968, and we're still talking about the same thing. The same thing.
Yeah.
Oh man.
It's crazy that, there and the crazy thing is, like, I always encourage athletes that, yes, they tell you just to shut up and run, shut up and throw, shut up and dribble, but at some point you have to be aware of who you are and what you're doing. Yes, as athletes, we are entertainment. As athletes, we are paid to be a commodity as a form of payment. Like, we give our body to get paid, right? So knowing all these things, you have to be super, super hyper aware of how you move in your sport, what rules are being made that affect you. And if you don't know, that's a problem. That is a major problem. If you don't know what things you can and can't do in your sport, it's because you could get in trouble one day, or one of your friends could be banned from the sport. And it's just healthy. And for me, it's most important just knowing what people who don't play the sport are saying, what I can and can't do. As a human being, as a person who has rights, how am I able just to sit back and allow other people to make a decision without at least hearing my voice? You're going to hear me fight, kick, and scream before I let you tell me what to do. So I think athletes have to be more involved in the decisions that are being made about them outside of the court, outside of the weight room, outside of the track or the field, because these changes and these rules and guidelines are very important to what you do as a human being.
Yeah, I think, and that you're exactly right. And I think it's very important for the young athletes now that have social media at their disposal to not only, show what they're doing and how they're competing, but also show who they are and what they're about. What core values do they have? What business do they do? What nonprofit do they have? Right. So to get away from that shut up and dribble, shut up and run, shut up and play thing, we're not just our sport.
Yeah. Yep.
Right.
And there's so many avenues to prove that you are more. You don't have to be interested in athletics. You can be interested in being a doctor or being a lawyer or anything. And in some way or facet, like, sports is going to be on your side. There's so many characteristics that you learn from being an athlete that you can take into other realms of professionalism that just make you succeed and be successful.
Yes, absolutely. So that's all the questions that I had. I had a great time. Thank you for popping on the show and sharing your story and your knowledge with us. I want to say good luck on running to be a committee member. Thank you for doing that.
Yes,
absolutely. So I'll stay tuned in for you for that. And that's in December, you said?
Yes.
Awesome. Is there anything you want to, any kind of parting quotes or any thoughts that you have?
Sure. Yeah. I know you mentioned there's a lot of high school and collegiate athletes that watch this. So just like knowing that I've been there before, please know that you guys have a lot of allies out there. And if you're ever just want anything, I think the best way of going about it is reaching out to those athletes who have been there and done that. I know it might seem intimidating, but honestly, it's as simple as an email, as simple as a DM or a message. If you have an idol, say someone who's playing in college or someone who's a professional, shoot them a message. We love hearing from high school and, middle school athletes that we want y'all to come and follow our footsteps and we're trying to make this journey a little less hard and a little more easier for you. So speak to us, we're open to, conversations. And the last thing I'll say is It's so important to be an athlete and also brand yourself. I'm really big on this because it's helped me be successful both collegiately and professionally. But the thing about all of this is being able to tell your story, right? So I always tell, a lot of athletes that I meet is find a way that's genuine to you on how to tell your story. And when you tell your story, you can sell your story, right? So a lot of companies are looking to work with athletes who do it well. So sell your story well, but not only just because like, oh, you can make money or whatever, but because you're a human being. Like, I feel like the more transparent an athlete is, the more valuable they are. So if you want to increase your value as an athlete, you have to become a person. And the only way you can become a person is showing your life authentically. So I feel like a lot of athletes are like, no, that's distracting. I don't want to get involved. I just want to play my sport, right?
Yeah.
It's like, that's all fine and dandy, and I get it. I love the focus, but at some point, when you give people a little insight of your personal life or a little insight of something close to you, you'll become real, right? So when LeBron James shows his family, he becomes real. He's not all of a sudden this idol that we all think is untouchable. And that's how you have to live your life as an athlete. I would love to line up against the best of the best in the 800 meters, the world record holders, the people that I look up to all my life, and see them as humans, because they're just like us. And so when you do that, not only do you realize like, hey, if I can do that, if they can do that, I can do that. Not only do you realize that people are human, but you also get a chance to just tell your story, and people flock to people who are like authentic and transparent. So I say, if you want to increase your following, if you want to have more supporters, if you want to build your dream team, like, be more transparent, like show us a side of you that's more than an athlete. And I think that's one of the avenues to being a successful student athlete for sure.
So good. That's awesome advice. I'm going to use that too still. So let me see. I don't know if we had any questions. We might have had questions on the other live, but this was such a treat to catch up with you and hear your full story. And see what you've been doing since college, since we graduated. So I wish you luck. I wish you luck on whatever happens after this pandemic as far as competing again. I hope you can stay at that level, that peak performance that you're at. And I can't wait to see you on the tube. The tube. Like,
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. It was so nice catching up to you as well. So thank you for having me. You're doing great. Keep working, girl. Keep working.
Thank you. One last thing before you get off the live here. I want you to talk about your nonprofit so they know the name. If you want to, let's get that out there for them. I'm going to pop your email and your contact on here as you talk. All right.
You got it. Guys, I have my nonprofit is called First Athlete Coalition, but it's not exactly ready yet, but we are accepting clients. So if you want help or need anything, please refer to my email. That's the fastest way to kind of get any kind of help with that. So please check that out, or my Instagram as well, but mostly email. And just excited to get started and work with student athletes and just help them build their empire.
Awesome. Okay. Thank you, Kendra. Don't sign off. I'm going to end the live. Guys, this is it. If you missed any of this, it's going to be popped on YouTube, Facebook. Rewind it, watch it, contact her, ask her questions about her journey. Just reach out. Don't be afraid. Like she said, don't be afraid to reach out to us professional athletes. We're human.
Yeah.
We're human. All right, guys. See you later. All right.